Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Thursday, August 15th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 355 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. Today, we've got a lot to discuss on the podcast as we recap day number 15 of New York Jets training camp, and the New York Jets were out in North Carolina this afternoon to face the Carolina Panthers in their second of three joint practices this camp. Last week, they faced the Commanders, of course. This week was a joint practice with the Carolina Panthers. Next week, they will be facing off against the New York Giants in joint practice, and, of course, their preseason games as well. We will break it all down today on the podcast. For those of you tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. I appreciate all the support. As always, we are just 6 subscribers away from 400. Now, before we begin, let me tell you about our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that delivers tickets from all over the internet and puts them into one spot to make it easier for you, the buyer. What makes SeatGeek so great is they rate each ticket on a scale from 1 to 10, so you know what type of deal you are getting on your ticket. You know if you're paying the right price and finding the right seat for the event that you're selecting. Look for the green dots. Green means good. Those are the good deals. Those are the tickets you want to purchase. Plus, my viewers, use promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Click the link in the description down below. That'll take you to download the SeatGeek app. And at checkout, again, that is promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. This is tickets for anything, not just football, not just sports, anything, plays, concerts, shows. If you can buy a ticket, SeatGeek has it. Promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Also, my friends over at Huga House. I'm wearing my Huga House hat right now. If you want the hat I'm wearing right now, or any of the hats that Aaron Rodgers wears all the time, Shane Gillis, Tyler Conklin, so many athletes and celebrities rock the Huga House apparel. Use promo code BUBS for 15% off any purchase and get yourself some of the same swag that QB1 Aaron Rodgers is wearing. Click the link in the description down below. That'll take you to the Huga House store. And at checkout, again, that is promo code BUBS for 15% off. All right, now let's get into practice today. Day number 15 for the New York Jets and training camp as a whole. And it was joint practice today for the New York Jets as they headed out to North Carolina for one joint practice against the Carolina Panthers. Day off tomorrow. And then, of course, they will face off in a preseason game on Saturday night. So that should be a lot of fun as well. We'll have a game preview coming at you tomorrow afternoon, previewing everything that you need to know going into Saturday evening's game, week 2 of the preseason. But today was a joint practice, the second of 3 joint practices, as I mentioned, in the open for the New York Jets, the first of them that it was on the road. And an interesting day for the Jets, kind of a mixed bag overall. Of course, hearing all the reports, hearing from everybody in attendance, seeing some of the clips, seeing some of course, all the action for the Jets today in Carolina. Kind of a mixed bag. It felt like it was a slow start for the offense, a little bit of a slow start for the defense as well. But as practice went on, things got better. The offense started to play a little bit better. Defense started to play a little bit better. So sort of a half and half practice. It felt like Carolina won the first half and then the Jets won the second half of practice. And that was similar to Tuesday as well. If you remember, Aaron Rodgers had one of his best practices of the summer on Tuesday, but things didn't start very well. I believe he started 1 of 5, I think it was. A couple bad drives, couple bad plays early on in that practice, but then he picked it up and he finished really, really strong. And that was kind of the same case today. A couple picks, couple turnovers, felt like a couple miscommunications, just a little bit sloppy early on, especially in the first set of 11-on-11 drills where Rodgers went 1 of 4 with a pick. And then things turned around kind of halfway through practice where he had 2 touchdowns, was able to get Garrett Wilson involved a ton. You started to see some positives from many different guys. So a little bit of a mixed bag today overall before we break down each position group from the Jets today in Carolina against the Panthers. Now, of course, we'll do our usual here. We'll start with the quarterbacks and we'll break down Rodgers. Like I said, a mixed bag for him, mixed bag for the offense. Finished the day around 15 of 23, around that range with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. although one of the interceptions wasn't even his fault, which we'll get to that here in a second. But we'll break down the positives first. I mean, both of his touchdowns today. Both of his touchdowns this afternoon were in the hands of Garrett Wilson, which is great to see. I mean, this is a two players that you just cannot wait. As each day goes by, you just want to just press a button to fast forward to the regular season and keep both these guys healthy and keep these guys. I mean, just they're just so good. It is unbelievable. Every single practice, it feels like every day, even when the offense isn't having its best days, it always feels like there is a highlight between Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. There is always something going on between these two players. They're just so good. They're so dominant. And it feels like they're even better than they were last year. And maybe that's just because, maybe that's just me, because last year they were, of course, great during training camp. But it feels like these two guys have been playing together for a full year now. And it doesn't feel like Rodgers missed any time last year from a chemistry standpoint with Garrett Wilson. They're connecting every single practice. They're always talking. They're always going over things. It's just a great, great relationship the two have. And it's exactly what you want to see out of your future Hall of Fame quarterback and, of course, your rising star receiver. So the first touchdown came in the back of the end zone. Beautiful throw by Rodgers. Perfect catch by Garrett Wilson to keep his feet in bounds. And then the second of the day came during 2-minute drills. 70 seconds were on the clock. The Jets were able to move the ball really, really well down the field. And they were able to get Garrett Wilson again, kind of on a fade route in the end zone, and was able to finish off the last play of practice for the first team. Last play of team drills for the Jets. Jets first team there was with that 2-minute drill, and it was to Garrett Wilson again. So just the ability to not only find him in some of those short red zone situations inside the 5, inside the 10, but also some of the deep balls that they're able to uncork. I mean, the one touchdown Garrett Wilson had in the back of the end zone was probably about 20, 25 yards. Rodgers rolling out. Just a beautiful throw and an even better catch in traffic. So just an excellent, excellent couple of passes, excellent couple of connections between those two guys as that connection continues to only get better. And it wasn't just the touchdowns. Rodgers had a couple other completions. He probably had maybe 4 or 5 completions overall today to Garrett. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but all the reports, all the tweets you see, there was certainly a handful of connections, both short, long, intermediate, everywhere. Garrett Wilson is always all over the field, it seems. Some other plays that Rodgers had. He had Conklin during the 2-minute drill. He got him on back-to-back plays for first downs. So Conklin got involved a little bit. Always good to see Rodgers and his Jets offense feature the tight ends. Lazard also had a couple catches. We'll get to Lazard. Wasn't a very strong day for him, but we'll break that down here in a little bit. Rodgers was also able to get the ball to Xavier Gipson for a big gain. So Gipson had a nice day. That was good to see. Coming off the injury, of course, the last couple practices has looked pretty good, made a couple plays. So him and Corley continue to kind of impress in that role of, taking Corley, of course, got some first-team reps. Of course, Gipson as well. Both guys have made some plays so far this camp. And Isaiah Davis had a really strong day today. He made a couple plays from a pass-catching perspective, from a receiving perspective, which we'll get to Isaiah Davis here in a little bit. But overall, even what was sort of a bumpy day for Rodgers, not as smooth as, he still has 2 touchdowns. The Garrett Wilson connection was still in full effect. Was able to get Tyler Conklin involved a little bit. And, of course, spreading the ball around, which is something that you love to see from this offense. Now, like I said, the 2 interceptions. The first was not on Aaron Rodgers, and this is the second interception. I think Rodgers has probably thrown, if I had to guess, I think Rodgers has maybe thrown 3-4 interceptions, possibly this training camp. I don't know it right off the top of my head, but he's thrown a couple of interceptions, and 2 of them that I do know, and I think all Jets fans know, have been because of Allen Lazard. A couple of weeks ago, Chuck Clark had an interception against Aaron Rodgers to open up practice, and it was because it was off of Allen Lazard's hands and right into the arms of Chuck Clark. Today, that was the same exact thing. Pretty much same exact situation. Allen Lazard on a slant route. Rodgers fires it off of Lazard's hands, goes into the air, and into the Carolina Panthers defender, Alex Cox, who was the one that got it out of the air and brought it in for an interception. Their safety. So not on Aaron Rodgers at all. Lazard was open. It was a good pass. The clip's out there. Lazard just drops it. Goes right off his hands into the air and into the arms of the safety for the Panthers, Alex Cox. So that was not on Rodgers. Unfortunately, Lazard throughout camp this summer has had some practices where he looks great. Rodgers has made it a emphasis to target him, get him involved. He's been a lot more focused, but there's definitely been some of those head scratching and frustrating moments where you see the drops. You see the two plays that resulted in turnovers, going off his hands, going off his chest. It's just very unfortunate. That was the first one. So not on Rodgers. However, the second one was on Rodgers. Trevin Wallace picked it off for the Carolina Panthers. Their linebacker, kind of an interesting play for Rodgers, just in the end zone, just didn't seem like he saw him coming. Just Panthers probably kind of disguised the coverage well. Rodgers thought he saw an opening. Trevin Wallace jumped in front, picked it off. So good play by him. Kind of got to tip your cap. Rodgers obviously just didn't see it. So that was the second interception. So 2 on the day, 1 not on Rodgers. The other one was on him. Ends the day, 2 TDs, 2 picks. As for some of the other quarterbacks, Tyrod had a couple really nice plays. One to Lance McCutcheon deep down the field for about 40-plus yards. And then he also got Brownlee involved again, also deep down the field. So Tyrod was airing it out a little bit there, getting some of the depth guys involved. Tyrod also had a pick today. It was a bad one across the middle, kind of a bad read, threw it into traffic and just wasn't a very smart throw. So he did have a pick today. So 3 interceptions overall from Jet quarterbacks. Not the best stat in the world, not the best day in the world. But you're going to have those days. It's going to happen. You should not be panicking if you're a Jet fan. If you're a Jet fan panicking over a joint practice, I don't know what to tell you. Adrian Peterson also. This is your daily Adrian Martinez. Adrian Martinez. This is your daily Adrian Martinez update. Got the ball to Brandon Smith on a really nice pass. So Adrian Martinez and Brandon Smith continue to connect. They continue to building strong chemistry. So that is your daily third quarterback battle update. Didn't see a ton on Andrew Peasley today, but Adrian Martinez had a highlight. That's all that matters. I'm excited to watch him sling it again on Saturday night in a preseason game against the Panthers. So that's mainly the quarterbacks. Kind of a mixed bag overall for them today. A couple highlights, some good, some bad, up and down. That was kind of the story for the Jets this afternoon. You go to the running backs. I thought it was a really, really good day for the running backs. This might have been the strongest point, actually, for the Jets this afternoon. Breece Hall had one really, really nice run where he completely got a guy to go on ice skates, completely broke his ankles with a really nice move when he got to the second level and was able to break out to the edge, get out to the sideline. They called the play dead, but if they didn't call it dead and it was a real game situation, it could have been a possible touchdown for Breece Hall. Got to the second level. Didn't look like anybody was catching up to him. So really, really good run from him. He continues to do Breece Hall things, of course. And a guy that you can make the case maybe his best day of camp, and that was Isaiah Davis. Now, he did have a bad drop from Tyrod late in practice during a 2-minute drill, which the drive looked promising, and then Davis had the drop, and then Tyrod threw the pick, and that was the end. So that wasn't great, but otherwise a very good day for Isaiah Davis minus that drop. He had a couple really nice catches. He had a couple really nice runs, and he also had a touchdown. He had a 20-yard touchdown on a run where he ran behind Olu Fashanu. Fashanu opened up a lane, got to the second level, good as a downhill blocker in the run game, and Davis scored on it, 20-plus yards. So really, really strong day for Isaiah Davis, arguably his best of training camp. And, I mean, if you're a Jet fan, you've also got to be fired up for this running back room. Because not only do you see, look, Breece Hall is Breece Hall. We know what he's going to bring to the table. He's an elite running back, one of the best in the NFL. But not only is that the case, but you also look at Braylon Allen, who has been awesome this camp and had a great preseason game where he averaged over 9 yards a carry. And then you have a guy like Isaiah Davis, who also showed some positives in the preseason game, but then goes out there today and puts together a really strong joint practice. You have 3 backs that you got to be really, really confident in. And the scary part is Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis are both rookies. You haven't seen a ton of rookie growing pains from them so far. It feels like they have fit right in. which is a really big positive, especially because this is a Jet team that's going to rely on those guys because there is no veteran. There's no real, Allen's the number 2, Davis the number 3. These are going to be guys that are going to see the field. They're going to get opportunities. And you've got to be confident in both of them to step up behind Breece because they've both been very, very good, especially Davis today. One of his best days, I think, of camp from what you look what he did, not only from a running perspective, but from a receiving perspective as well. Both Allen and Davis, I think, have been really, really impressive. Well, more so Allen, but Davis today also showing off a receiving ability. It's really refreshing to see this Jets offense get their running backs involved in the receiving game. I mean, how many times last year did Nathaniel Hackett was like blind to the fact that Breece Hall was a great receiver? I mean, we always talk about his comments after the Giants game when he basically said, I didn't know Breece Hall was a good receiver. It's like, what are you doing? You don't know your players? So it's been great to see them kind of have an emphasis on getting the running backs involved in the receiving game, in the passing game. It's a really big positive. I think that was one of the biggest positives for the Jets this afternoon. You go to the receivers. Talked about Garrett Wilson. He was all over the field. Lazard had a mixed bag today. Had a couple catches, had the bad drop. He is what he is. We know what Lazard is. I mean, he's going to have those bad drops. You just hope that drops don't translate into interceptions in games, but it's going to happen. We know what Lazard is. He's going to suffer drops. That's just the player he is. I still think overall he's put together a strong camp. Today, not his best. We talked about Brownlee, McCutcheon. I mean, the depth receivers continue to shine. And Lance McCutcheon's a guy, too, that Rodgers, who we talked about on Tuesday, spoke out and said, Lance McCutcheon, they asked him, who has been some of your underrated guys that have impressed you at camp, and McCutcheon was one of them. So never a bad thing to get praise from Aaron Rodgers. He had a nice catch today from Tyrod deep down the field. Brownlee had another good day today. We talked about Irv Charles. He had a really good day the other day. On Tuesday, had a very strong practice. I mean, all these guys, especially recently here, it kind of felt like early in camp, Brownlee didn't do a whole lot. Then he turned it on. And now you're hearing more out of Irv Charles. And now all of a sudden, Lance McCutcheon's really emerging. Like Brownlee, Irv Charles, Lance McCutcheon. Malik Taylor's kind of been a non-factor, it seems. But from a receiving perspective, depth-wise, they've been excellent. Even a guy in Brandon Smith. I mean, I don't see him making the roster, but had a really nice play in the preseason game. Had another play today working with the third team, Adrian Martinez. I mean, those two guys feel like Joe Montana and Jerry Rice out there right now this summer. So the depth at receiver is really, really strong for the New York Jets right now. And they'll have some decisions to make. Gibson as well, like I said, had a really strong day. So that's always good to see. He also had a really nice play on a kick return. Made a few guys miss, got to the outside, possibly a touchdown in a real game situation. So some of the kickoff stuff, some of the punting stuff, Gibson flashed in that today, which is always positive as a returner. Really interesting to see what the Jets do with the returning spot. Gibson, you'd assume, would lead the way. They've also had Brandon Cotterington back all the time in practice. Corley's gotten reps. Tariq Cohen was getting reps prior to retiring. So they've had a handful of guys in practice get returning reps, both punt and kicks. Tight ends, like I said, Conklin made a few nice grabs today. That was about it. Of course, Ruckert's still not practicing, dealing with a couple things like Salah said the other day. So he's still going to miss some time. He'll probably be back next week. Tyler Conklin was the main guy there from a tight end perspective today. As for the offensive line, Tyron Smith was back, participating in team drills. So that's good. That's a positive. People panic when he misses 2 days or he's limited for 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. People are like, oh no. They're again, this is the dog days of summer. They're reaching the middle of camp. They've gone healthy to this point. Keep going with what's working, and that's limiting him, making sure he's ready for the regular season. Tyron Smith being ready for week 1 is so much more important than him being ready for a joint practice in August. So that was an injury update there. Olu Fashanu. Got a clip to show you. Great rep today in one of our individual drills. Offensive line versus Panthers defensive line drills today. Great rep at right tackle. This has got to give you a ton of confidence if you're a New York Jet fan. I mean, Olu completely right tackle, and this is right tackle too. That's not his normal spot. Excellent pass protection rep. Got more right tackle reps today in the team drills. So far, Olu at right tackle for a rookie that never played a down in college football at right tackle has shown you a lot of positives for just switching over just a couple days ago. So that was good to see. I mean, seeing that, even though it's only a one-on-one rep, is just gives you so much confidence, gives you so much excitement that this guy really is your cornerstone future left tackle, right tackle, whatever you need him to do, but mainly left tackle. It's just so refreshing to see after what we've been through, especially the last couple of years, every year trying to buy into Becton and all that nonsense. And Dwayne Brown coming in. Of course, that was a disaster last season. All is finally nice to actually have confidence in this offensive line. And seeing those reps from Olu, got to give you a ton of confidence. That's mainly the offense. Again, overall, kind of a mixed bag there. Lazar wasn't great. A couple turnovers. Thought the running backs were good. Depth receivers continued to shine. Up and down, slow start, strong finish to practice. As for the defense, a lot of individual drill stuff I have here to share with you. We'll get to some of the defensive line versus Panthers offensive line stuff. So Eric Watts won some battles and drills. Who looked really good with, showing off some of his strengths, showing off some of his power. Solomon Thomas had a really dominant rep against the Panthers offensive line. Tack McKinley today had a really nice get off in one of his reps and showed off a nice spin move. So channeling his inner Will McDonald rather. And Will McDonald also in individual drills impressed with a spin move against the Panthers offensive line. So he continues to showcase that spin move. He continues to showcase his athleticism. Those were some of the individual drills from a defensive line perspective. Quinnen didn't practice today, has a sore shoulder. So Salah said nothing major. If it was game week, if it was a game today, he would be out there. So no reason to worry. Again, it's training camp. If he's a little banged up, keep him out. It's smart. Don't want to risk anything further. Tanzel Smart had a sack today, so that was good. And Michael Clemens got into a couple scuffles today. Looked like he threw a punch, according to some beat reporters. He threw a couple punches, and it seemed like every time he was in, Panthers are kind of going after him a little bit. He was going after them, so some heated scuffles there. There was a couple fights today that broke out. Not anything major, not any like Giants-Lions stuff that was happening a week ago now, where essentially the Giants and the Lions were basically fighting each other it seemed like every other play, even to the point that Daniel Jones was getting involved in a red non-contact jersey. So nothing to that extent, but there was some scuffles. Clemens involved with some of them. Sort of a mixed bag for the defense as well. Like I said, there was a couple plays where, and if maybe it's because Quinnen wasn't out there and that just makes a huge difference, but it seems like the Jets dominated the Panthers offensive line in individual drills, like one-on-one stuff. But once they got to team drills, it felt like there was a couple runs that the Panthers were able to break out. There was a couple passes that they were able to connect on. Bryce Young had a couple deep balls. Secondary-wise, they were able to find some holes. So overall, kind of a mixed bag there from that perspective for the Jets defense, especially up front. But you did have the positive of a Tanzel Smart getting a sack. So some of the depth guys as well on the defensive line still showing you some positives here. And these next couple preseason games, these next two preseason games will be huge, especially with Hassan Reddick out requesting a trade. Who knows if he plays? If he doesn't, you're going to need one of these other guys to potentially step up and a roster spot will open for them. So those depth battles continue to get kind of larger and larger as we get closer here to the end of camp and the start of the season. As for the secondary corner safeties, DJ Reed had a fight to start practice. Terrace Marshall called a touchdown on him. Seemed like Marshall threw the football at Reed afterwards. There was a scuffle, and then DJ Reed picked up the football and then threw it at Marshall. So kind of a funny sequence. You just see two guys throwing footballs at each other was interesting. A little bit of a scuffle broke out there. Didn't seem like it was DJ Reed's best day. Seemed like he was getting beat a little bit today. Seemed like Terrace Marshall was getting the better of him. especially on that play to open up practice. So interesting there, but I think there was probably 2-3 fights or 2-3 scuffles. I think Clemens might have been the only one that actually threw a punch, but there was certainly scuffles, certainly some pushing and shoving, and DJ Reed was involved in the first scuffle of the day where he actually threw a football back at Terrace Marshall. So kind of an interesting thing there. Chuck Clark had a really strong day today. He might have been the best on the Jets defense. Had an interception in 7v7 drills and also had a huge hit on Chuba Hubbard, who actually was down for a little bit after the play. Seemed like he was okay, but initially things are okay. But he was down a little while after that big hit. So Chuck Clark was laying the boom a little bit. Good to see that Chuba Hubbard should be okay, though. Never want to see anybody, especially a starting running back, get hurt in a joint practice that ultimately means nothing in the long run. So Chuck Clark, though, I mean, just Swiss Army knife. His ability, I think he's done a really good job this camp. I think he's really flashed in coverage. I've been really impressed with that. He's had, I think, 2 interceptions. His tackling's been great. Tackling has always been a strength of his. He's been one of the better tacklers. Forget at safety. He's been one of the better tacklers in the NFL. Really one of the more underrated defenders in the NFL. Not only is he a Swiss Army knife and can do everything, but when he's healthy, he plays every single snap. I mean, he had an Ironman streak last year of over 1,200 consecutive snaps played prior to his injury in OTAs. But he looks healthy, and that's most importantly. For a guy that missed all last year, didn't even participate in training camp last season. He hasn't played in the game since he's missed like an entire year. It's not even like he was in training camp last year. He tore his ACL in OTAs. For a guy to come out and look that healthy, a full year plus removed from the injury now, it's a big positive. And I think little by little here, the Jets safety core, I think you've got to be building more and more confidence in it. I think Tony Adams has looked pretty good. I think Chuck Clark's been probably the best out of all of them. And, Ashton Davis always comes up in games where he'll just pick up interceptions because that's what he does. He's a ball magnet. The Jets don't have the most household names at safety, but they're upgrades over what they've had. And I think Chuck Clark's going to impress a lot of people. I think Chuck Clark, he's always flown under the radar in his career, and then this year is no different. And seeing him out there at joint practices doing his thing is really, really good to see. So that's Jets Panthers joint practice. Let me know in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts? What are your biggest takeaways from New York Jets joint practice this afternoon? Like I said, up and down day for the Jets, mixed bag, some positives, some negatives, some turnovers, some bad plays, some good plays, both offensively and defensively. Not as dominant as the Commanders last week, where it felt like the Jets were just doing everything at ease. There was no problems. Today, that wasn't necessarily the case. Panthers gave them a little bit of a tougher matchup. So, but overall, got good work in. Still some positives to take away. Still some good evaluation to take away. And day off tomorrow, and the Jets will be back in action against the Panthers on Saturday night for game 2 of 3 this preseason before Giants week next week, where they'll have a joint practice on Wednesday. I'll be out there, so I'll have my in-person takeaways for that. And then, of course, closing out the preseason next Saturday back at MetLife against the Giants. So content coming up. We'll have a player preview tomorrow morning to close out the week, Friday morning player preview. And then we'll have our Jets-Panthers game preview sometime up in the afternoon. So stay tuned for that. And, of course, we'll have our recap after the game and all that good stuff. So stay tuned. A lot more content coming away. Season gets closer as each day goes by. Cannot wait. As always, hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to please like and subscribe. Just 6 subscribers away from the 400 mark. I appreciate all of your support. Appreciate all of you tuning in, whether you're listening or watching. And as always, until next time, Jets, Jets, Jets.